So hello, YouTube, Earth. Here we are again. This will be perhaps the first time that most of us meet, but definitely not the last. So, is that better? Yeah. Mid scientist look. It doesn't matter what I look like. What matters is what I have to say. And it's important. At least I hope you think so. I do. So, a lot of shit's been going down lately. Mandela Effect. All these claims from different WikiLeaks and Anonymous about what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah, it's still tomorrow, I think. A few minutes till midnight. But, yeah. Regardless of whether there's a diversion tomorrow about the election, which at this point I'm pretty doubtful of. There are some things that we just can't deny, and they are the Mandela Effect. Now, originally, the Mandela Effect could have been ascribed to just inaccurate reporting. But with all the other shit that's happened, that's no longer viable. Okay? So, some of the things that have been reported about the Mandela Effect, for specific example, the supposed change in the line from ET. I saw ET when it first came out. I was like 8 years old. And he said, ET home phone. Okay? That's how I remembered it anyway. But there's a lot of other things that are definitely different. Everything from the Chick-fil-A logo to Mirror Mirror on the Wall. And what's up with Moonraker? That's one of the obvious ones for, one of the most egregious changes for those who aren't into scripture or anything. First, we'll get to scripture, but first we'll talk about Moonraker. So Moonraker was 1981. I don't know. It's an old ass 007 movie. Okay, and the bad guy is this big, huge Andre the Giant looking guy. Andre the Giant was great. Please don't take any derogatory meaning from that. I thought his best line ever was, "I didn't have to miss, The Princess Bride. They start fucking with that movie, we're gonna have a problem. But in the movie Moonraker, this big guy with metal teeth falls in love with this girl named Dolly, this young, blonde, pretty girl. And their connection is he crashes into like this ski lodge thing, and she goes and lifts this big like wagon wheel type thing off of the debris, and he gets out and he stands up and he smiles and he's got these big metal teeth. And then she smiles and she has these braces. Well, now in the movie, she no longer has braces. So there's no connection there whatsoever. And, you know, a lot of these things could be ascribed to misremembering, especially shit like life was like a box of chocolates instead of life is like a box of chocolates. Especially the way he says it. Life was like a box of chocolates. Life was, life is, life was, life is, whatever. Bigger discrepancies are like movie Field of Dreams with if you build it, they will come. Now, the line is if you build it, he will come. It takes on a totally different meaning. Totally different. That's like, sounds like, you know, if you build it, God will come. He will come. The one, whatever. So there's a lot of things that have changed. And I could go on down the list from It's a Beautiful Day in This Neighborhood to the Mirror, Mirror on the Wall to, oh, right, Bible scripture. The wolf will lay down with the lamb now instead of the lion. Or maybe even other things that make no sense now that they're changed. There's a verse about putting wine in old wineskins, and you don't do that because old wineskins rot. I mean, you know, the fermentation process takes its toll on the leather. So you generally don't want to make a batch of wine and put it in an old wineskin because it's going to leak. It's going to pop. So now the scripture has changed to you don't put new wine in old bottles because old bottles perish. Well, they didn't have old bottles then. And even if they did, what fucking sense would that make? Because bottles don't perish. Right? So there's some shit definitely going on. And a lot of people think, oh my God, it's the end of the world as we know it. I think the end of the world as we know it is. And I'm sure it's past midnight by now. So it'll be November 8th. And look at that. No matter what happens, well, unless we entertain the whole WikiLeaks anonymous thing where they say that all hell's going to break loose and there won't really be an election and Obama's going to have to declare martial law and serve a third term. And look, that's probably going to happen somewhere in some version of reality. The thing is, there really is no reality. We've known this for a long time. I mean, spiritual teachers have been telling us this for thousands of years. And we started to understand this decades ago, 40s, 50s, whatever it was. Not even in the 1930s, we started studying quantum physics. And that's the word quantum has been one of my focal points. Not consciously, but it just came to me subconsciously about 10 years ago. needed to make a new Gmail account, and the first thing that popped into my head was Quantum Outlook. And I didn't even think about what that would mean precisely until probably a couple years later was the first time that somebody asked me, what does that mean, or whatever. And I said, well, okay, well, quantum means countable, pretty much. An outlook is a vision of the future. So, to me, quantum outlook means an outlook of the future which can be quantified, discerned, calculated, even constructed. Right? So, most of you know this already, but the whole double slit experiment and everything that we did to try to figure out how subatomic particles worked, specifically photons, we thought that photons were only capable of acting as particles, and we fired them like bullets at a wall with two slits in it, and there was a backer where they would be able to tell where these bullets hit. And so if photons were to actually act only as particles, as we had always thought, it would be essentially like bullets. Or let's just use Nerf guns here, since we don't want to. Since we'll just be mild, it don't really matter. Fuck it, though. You know, 50 cal. Okay. So we got this wall with two slits in it, and the wall behind it is obviously going to show us where those bullets hit. Now, everywhere we fire a bullet into the wall with two slits, okay, where there's wall, poof, 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 the bullet's going to hit that wall that blocks the backer. And in the two slots where the slits are cut in that wall is where we should see the bullets hit on the marker wall, right? Well, we ended up seeing a interference pattern that is indicative of waves rather than particles. And to just say it real quickly. Okay, so instead of the photons acting just like bullets and only hitting the backer at the two spots where the slits were, it didn't do that. It acted more like light or sound would. So imagine yourself behind that wall with the two slits, and instead of firing bullets at the wall, I'm blasting a stereo. Now, of course, in the two areas where the slits are, you're going to hear the music louder if you're standing right there. But if you step to the left or the right of that slit, slot, whatever, you're still going to hear the music because it's a wave, because it's going to travel through those slots and it's going to disperse. And so that was our first real scientific idea that what the spiritual teachers have been saying for thousands of years was accurate. It goes on deeper than that, but you can look it up. You're kind of just going to have to take my... No, don't ever take anybody's word for anything, really. I mean, if it resonates with you and it rings true, then absolutely hold it dear and cling on to it. And if necessary, double check it. I mean, there's a lot of shit that needs to be double checked because people have been talking out their ass for a long And too many people have been listening to those who talk out their ass. Our objective here is to cut through the mustard, is to speak from the heart instead of talking out of our ass. I mean, they say opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one. Just don't want to hear. So, yes. So, the very nature of science is that nothing is as we had thought. And it's not just that these photons can act as waves when we thought they were going to act as particles. It gets so much deeper than that. These photons can basically act however they want until they're observed, which, after decades and decades of intense experimentation, was only proved many times over. In fact, more recently, we have the phenomenon of quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement, in case you're not familiar with that, is try to speed this up by paraphrasing. I'm not very good at that. I'm not very good at speeding it up. Okay, so quantum entanglement is we've got two particles, and we do some voodoo magic, whatever you want to call it. We quantum entangle them. Okay, now they are forever locked together, and whatever you do to one of those particles will affect the other. And I'm not talking about if they're just a couple nanometers apart. I'm talking about they could be on the other side of the galaxy, and if you affect one, the other will be affected. In fact, the other will be affected so fast that at times the secondary particle is affected before the particle that you are inflicting that effect upon. And at all times, the relationship between the two happens faster than the speed of light. And this is not some new age fucking crap. This is shit that scared the crap out of Einstein. He called it spooky action at a distance. So this is all very, very well documented. So let's talk about what it means. What it means is this, and people are so afraid of the Mandela Effect. They're like, something was taken away from me. You know, my memories aren't the same. Well, yeah, they aren't. I mean, guess what? What it is it is just proof that this world is not the solid physical world that we had thought of it as for so long. This world is a construct. It is the Matrix. You hear that? Coming for you. It is the Matrix, but it is not the Matrix necessarily that's portrayed in the movie The Matrix, which is in like my top 3 all-time favorite movies ever, by the way, of course. And yet, at the same time, it is, because the point there is that you can affect it. The difference is that in the movie The Matrix, there was only one Neo. And in this matrix, we are all Neo. We are all the one. And what we believe is what is true. Now, there are some basic physical concepts like gravity that are universal, and that was intentional. That is something that we all agreed upon when we decided to come here to play this game. Then it makes sense. I mean, shit. If we were all just whoop, floating off into space, it'd be kind of hard to interact and, you know, drive race cars and do fun shit. So, gravity is one of the concepts that we agreed upon that would be universal and still is in effect. Not that it can't be overcome. It can be overcome in two basic ways. It can be overcome by physical means. If you should I I'm not gonna really explain how that works, but there is physical means to attain anti-gravity, um, and there's also spiritual means too, of course. Every night I fly, and maybe that's why I have these circles under my eyes, because I don't necessarily sleep at night in the sense of just getting rest. I tend to venture into other realms and just have other experiences. And we'll leave it at that. I mean, there are so many teachers that are well beyond me into exploring the Akashic records and things of that nature. So we'll leave that behind. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to try to tie this all together, especially for those of us. I was going to say you, but we are all the same. We are all but fragments of the same being. Oh, and I have a great explanation of that too. But okay, so picture this. I don't have. I don't even have. Doesn't matter. You can visualize this easy enough. Suppose that I'm holding up a quarter. Right? I'm holding it up right here between you and me. And I ask you, what do you see? Heads or tails? Of course, you're going to see one side of the coin, and I'm going to see the other, right? And we could sit there and we could argue forever about whether it's heads or whether it's tails. Or you could say, well, come on over here and, look at it. Look at it from this side, and you'll see that it's tails. And I go, oh yeah, 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 you're right, you're right. But come over here and look at it. Look at it from my side, and you'll see that it's heads. And of course, any logical person would have to agree if they actually cared to take a look at the flip side of the coin. But that is really the crux of it. That's really it. I mean, we could, you know, philosophize about right and wrong and whether there is any correct perception or any of that crap. And I think that there's definitely something to that. Okay, so real quickly, and I'll explain this in another video more in detail later. But we got to take the concept of yin and yang. Okay, so we have to look at good and evil, and so my belief is that in order to create something from nothing, we had to create a positive and a negative charge. We had to zap it. Okay, there was a positive and a negative, and that was necessary in the beginning to make something from nothing. However, once we got to the point where we became self-conscious, and we could look at that as literal or figurative or allegorical, and talk about Adam and Eve and the fruit of knowledge and them realizing they were naked and being ashamed, etc., etc. And then I I have no idea whether that's literally a true story. I'm sure on some level, um, it's very close. But the point is this: once we became self-conscious, that was actually a huge hurdle. It was like, oh my god, then we started second guessing all of our actions, and we thought about yesterday in retrospect and thought about tomorrow pensively. So it was a pretty big deal. Um, but we're well beyond that now. Now we are into a spiritual zone that we don't have to even have anything polarized anymore. There doesn't have to be positivity and negativity. You know, um, so many people are so into the whole, draconian uh, thing. I mean, David Icke is probably the biggest example of that. And everybody, hates the Illuminati and talks about the reptilians, and nobody knows. What's at the center of the earth? Is it the reptilians? Is it fucking Hitler? Or is it Agartha? Is it the world that General Byrd described? BYRD, if you're going to look him up. World renowned general who flew a plane over the North Pole and had an experience in which he perceived to fly through an opening in the earth, and goes into great detailed account about his experience at the center of the earth, just like Journey to the Center of the Earth, and et cetera, et cetera. And so he was not like made the laughing stock at all. What they did is they put him in charge of a huge mission, military operation called Project High Jump, where they took thousands of American soldiers to the South Pole to explore the resources there, just to check it out. Was ostensibly what it was about. Now there's it's like an onion where there's several different layers of reasons why people that ascribe it, and perhaps the biggest school of thought on this, and as far-fetched as it sounds, it may actually be entertainable. They had done, previous exploration there, and there's basically hot springs in the middle of Antarctica and some oasis-like zones. And uh, it's so funny that I feel almost like I should skip over this because it sounds too fucking nuts. But I won't. There's a large school of people, and these aren't nuts. These are people, these are very well educated people. These are people who have done their research. And the reason they believe this is not because they dreamed it up on some acid trip, it's because of their research and because of what they know. And these aren't your average people. I mean, these are a lot of this shit is just absolute documented military accounts of shit, things, documents that have been declassified over the years, etc. So here it is. They say, and now I don't know if you can hear that. It's probably too quiet for you to hear it, but we have a lot of foxes around here, and they're crazy, crazy like a fox. So I hear some foxes screaming and going ape shit out there. And who knows? Maybe they're lamenting Hillary Clinton. Right? 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 Hey, it's pretty funny. Anyway, oh man, and Donald's just awful too. I mean, seriously, like, why? You know, I'd have been happy if